We'll start with some follow up. We'll get into your trip, I think, maybe a little bit too. We'll start with some follow up because several months ago I talked about a hardware mute switch that I had purchased because there was no mute on the H6 that I was using. And I bought this mute switch. I've owned one previously, and I was miffed because I was like, oh, they changed the model or did something weird because now in order to unmute, I have to depress the button. So let me back up for people who don't remember that episode or whatever. So it's just a box with a female XLR and a male XLR. And what you do is you run the male XLR that's coming from your microphone into the female XLR of the little box. And then you run a female XLR to the male XLR on your audio interface. And that gives you an inline mute switch. What I didn't like when I got this one is to unmute, and it just has one button on it on the top, and you press the button, either the button is depressed or you press it down and it locks in place, and then it's, in that mode. What I didn't like is I would have to depress the button, so press it down in order to unmute, which was irritating because what I wanted to mostly have the button for was if I was about to cough or something like that while I was on a live mic, I could partially and then let it back up, and you wouldn't hear a pop or anything like that.
Yep.
Oh, what I said when I was muted was partially depressing. You wouldn't hear me cough. So, sitting here late the other night, and I was doing some thinking, and I was researching a few things, and I was jotting down some notes, and I jotted down some notes about some stuff with Mike, and I was like, oh, I could send Mike this mute switch because for him, having it be muted and then doing a kind of half press, not locking the button down, it's kind of a half press to say something and then letting it go back into mute might be helpful in us trying to figure out building out this low-cost talkback system. I was coming up with some ideas that you could possibly use for making that work. I was like, oh, well, if I'm going to send Mike my mute switch, I need to go find one because I'm gonna eventually get rid of the Vocaster 1 that Mike was I'm gonna say kind enough to send me because it
really means it was on my desk and I needed it off the desk
because it's gonna eventually die. It does seem to be kind of back a little bit more than it was for you. Like I haven't been having like that audio hiss that you were getting as much. It does appear sometimes there's crackle when you adjust the volume. Sometimes you press the mute button and it doesn't mute. Sometimes you press the auto gain button and it doesn't do the auto gain. So it's kind of hanging on, but not forever. I was like, oh, eventually I'm going to get rid of this. So let me go research some mute switches and figure out which one does the thing that I want it to do, which is when the button is up or not in the locked position, I'm unmuted. So I can do that little half press if I need to cough. Because generally, I think if I press it all the way in, you're going to hear a pop. Like, so tell me if you hear a pop, because I didn't test this since I did it.
No.
Do you hear a pop at all? No?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe Zone crushed it. Anyway, so I was on one of our favorite sites to go to for audio gear, which is Sweetwater.
Z-Sounds. Oh.
Well, this was actually Sweetwater.
Okay.
I don't know why I was on Sweetwater. Oh, I was looking at something else that I shouldn't have bought that I bought. But anyway, we'll come back to that at a later date. I don't even want to talk about it right now. But anyway, I wanted it and I figured, hey, this might actually be my last chance to get this thing. So anyway, doing some research on mute switches, I had quite a few, including ones from the company that I I bought this one on Amazon that's on my desk, but from the same manufacturer. And they had a couple of different models. And I'm like, oh, I bet I bought the slightly wrong model. And what I thought I was going to have to do to fix this, which is why I was going to send it to Mike, going back to that original, I'm going to say bitch session about it when I got it, is I thought I was going to have to rewire it, like take it. Well, I wasn't going to do it. Like find somebody that could like rewire it so it changed the behavior. I was like, that seems extra complicated. Well, somewhere in the reading of this, somebody mentioned that, oh, well, I sent this one back because it behaves this way. And they said that there was a switch to change the mode and I couldn't find the switch. I was like, there's this little hole like in the side of this thing that I just thought was just like a hole. I don't know why you put holes in things. I mean, there's little holes on the bottom of it too. Maybe they're just vents in case it gets hot. I don't know. Like, what do I know?
Right.
It's like, huh? Let me get this little screwdriver and see if I can flick this switch, and there's an actual switch in there. There's an actual switch in there, and now it does what I wanted to do. So the upside for me is I didn't have to buy anything new. The downside is not sitting at the bike.
That's okay. I still got a mute button right here on my handy dandy mixer that I'm going to give to the garbage. No, I'm really not. But good. So it actually does what you wanted it to do. You just didn't read the manual or ask ChatGPT, right?
Well, so I kind of asked ChatGPT, but to be fair, I asked a leading question, which is, how do I rewire this to do blah blah blah?
Ah,
And I gave it the model and all of that, but what it didn't do, and admittedly, this is months ago, so well before where we are right now today with GPT and its capabilities, it did not point out to me, as it probably would today, which maybe I should go type that into a prompt and see what it does. I'll do it when I let Mike talk for a while and see what it says. But what it should have, hey, there's actually a toggle switch on that model that you should just be able to, reach in there with like a pen or a little screwdriver or something and just like flip this toggle switch and then it'll change the behavior. Uh, but yeah, I did not read the manual. I assumed because I was buying the exact same model that I had before that that's how it was going to work. But occasionally, what happens with companies, and this is something to be aware of, sometimes they like they do revisions of a product without really changing the model number, or if they do change it, it's so subtle that like you're not going to remember. It's not like a whole version change. It's not like, oh, this is version 12. Like, no, this is the Rolls MS 11, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, well, yeah, that's the one I bought. All right, let me get that. Uh, so I just thought it was one of those situations like, oh, they made a subtle change, maybe because the industry was like, hey, I actually use this for talkback and I don't really want to be unmuted most of the time or whatever the case was anyway. But yeah, I figured out that it worked just because somebody's random comment on why they sent back the one that they had, probably because they didn't figure out that there was a little switch inside of a hole that they could flick. So cool. I get to keep my mute. Also, I was thinking about, and the way that I even got here, Mike, is because I was thinking about, if I clean off my desk, I would have enough room to put the MKT back up here. Because obviously, obviously, I have not sold it. It's in a box downstairs in the house. So I was like, I could put the MTK, the sound. What is it?
Soundcraft Signature 12 MPK.
There we go. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could put the Soundcraft back up here because, it does have the 12 in, 12 out over USB to the Mac. And Zoom has, handily added this feature, which is where I find myself at most times now, where I need to be able to send a specific channel or channels to the app. So it's like, this could be cool. I could put that back on there. That gives me a mute button. It's like, yeah, I should go research mute buttons. So I'm not sure I want to put that MTK back on here because it still came in low over USB, and that's not a fixable thing without some finessing of loopback.
Yeah.
But it did occur to me in this conversation, that's how I got to some stuff for you, and actually thinking about the whole talkback thing, which is how you almost got a mute switch in this box that I haven't shipped off yet. But I'll get there. I just hadn't made it to the mail place. It's like, oh crap, I gotta open Mike's box, but he'll get something new. But I was thinking about, I was like, I bet the reason that we have the ability to now select channels in Zoom from the audio device, if the device exposes said channels to the Mac, is because of them purchasing Liminar and Zoom ISO and Zoom shortcuts or Zoom cuts, whatever they call it.
So I haven't watched it yet, but Office Space has on Friday's episode that they posted, they interview a couple of guys from Zoom about upcoming features to Zoom. And apparently there's a lot to do with live events in there. So I'm going to have to go check that out because that's something that interests me. On Friday, I was having my own fight with Zoom and my Mackie 12 Pro FX V3, and I was about to throw everything in the garbage. And it was very overwhelming and frustrating in the heat of the moment. And I honestly still don't know what the issue is. I have some suspicions, and I have some solutions for what we can do next time. But let's just say Friday did not go as well as I wanted it to. And I'll give you my hack together solution that did kind of work. And I got to buy new microphones. So that's fun. So the problem to be solved was that on Friday, I was doing a board meeting for the state of Oregon, audio for a board meeting. And I'm on the board, so had to be there for that as well. And longtime listeners know that I was in the same venue in 2022 doing convention. And I'll preface this by saying audio this year was better, though it's kind of ironic. So in 2022, we ended up using the MacBook Air microphone to get audio from in person. This is for our convention specifically to
Huh.
Zoom, and then Damashe's mute button didn't work. Oh.
I couldn't reach it. I was trying to reach it, and I had my head on the keyboard. I couldn't quite reach it before I sneezed.
We were trying to get audio from in person to Zoom, and we used the MacBook Air microphone. And then I plugged an RCA cable because I forgot this till we got there on Friday. Their audio inputs is a dual RCA input on the wall, and that's called wall plate one. So we ran a Y cable from dual RCA males to an 1/8 inch male from the MacBook Air headphone jack into their system, and people on Zoom were heard in person, but on Zoom, it was not the most pleasant audio experience. This year, it was totally opposite. In person audio could be heard on Zoom crystal clear, aside from one of my microphones that I do have to remind myself I only spent $120 on this dual wireless microphone setup. And so, yeah, I should probably update it. Anyways, people on Zoom were able to hear in the room just fine. But for some reason, Zoom would never come out of the Vocaster because I was sending audio out of the Vocaster into the Mackie board and then sending that audio from the Mackie board to the overheads. Now, when I got home, I think I solved the problem and know why it didn't work when I was resetting everything up. And that comes to the fact that I had cables plugged in opposite than the way they should have been plugged in. So I think that's going to solve the problem, but I'm also going to do some more experimentation. And in order for people to hear Zoom through the overhead speakers, this is a little bit of piano playing. I would hold the Gemini wireless microphone to the bottom of my iPhone, and then I would mute the channel that had Carrie's microphone on it. Remind me to come back to that if I don't. I would mute that channel, and then I would make sure that the Zoom audio channel was muted as well. So that way it didn't loop back into Zoom. So I was doing my own personal mix minus. And you know what? Surprisingly, the Gemini picked up audio in person over the phone and sent that over the in-house speakers pretty darn well. But that was my not so good Friday evening, and I kind of wanted to talk. Damashe had messaged me and asked if I had some topics to talk about. Well, he said he gave me an idea of something to talk about that he wanted to chat about. But I was thinking, man, I got my own topic, and that is not beating yourself up because things don't go the way they should.
Hold
And
on.
I'm going to be fully transparent and say, I mean, we went to Outback Steakhouse afterwards with a couple of board members and had a pretty good steak, and was having a decent time. But the entire time in the back of my mind, both that night and then I had some other tech issues on Saturday. But that night and Saturday, I was beating myself up because I'm like, you should have been able to walk into that venue, plug in what you needed to plug in, and make things work the way that they should. And Mallory likes to tell people that there are organizations that will fly Michael across the country to help with their audio because that's happened. And it's pretty cool that he has that opportunity. But when that's disconcerting. I just got a message that says Zoom has new window. Uh,
Oh, that happens from time to time.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
probably
it does.
telling you. s-
But when I go to what really honestly should be an easy gig, and I take all of the equipment, and I have all the control over who does what, when, and where, and things don't go well, I tend to beat myself up over that, and that's something that you kind of shouldn't be doing, but we all do it when things go like that. So that's my thing, and now I'm considering. I know Damashe and I talked about renting speakers, but my problem with renting speakers is then that adds another level of uncertainty because I don't have control over who hit what switch when on those speakers. And so if you rent speakers, that adds a level of uncertainty to the mix. And honestly, I started looking at Z Sounds and refurbished speakers, and I might end up with some speakers of my own and then a little cart that I can just throw my gear in and say, all right, we tested it at home. Everything's working. We're going to go and we're literally just plugging power in and everything's going to work because it's already set up. All the cables are connected and everything is my potential new plan. We'll see. But that was my Friday.
So let's, and I agree with you, and I want to come back to that for a second because I have some relevant, you know, experience recently, which I have talked about a little bit, but just following up on that. But I'm more curious because on me, what like how did you have everything hooked up, and then what did you discover when you got home? Which is what happens. You get home, you're like, oh crap, I know what the problem was. I did blah blah blah. But
So I had it set up exactly the same here, except I believe. So right now I have the group one coming out of the board into the Vocaster, and I
mhm,
have nothing plugged into master.
okay,
So I had the house audio plugged into master, if I recall right. And I was getting some weird feedback with the master button pressed on the board for certain channels. So I swapped cables around, and it's one of those you try 10 different things because you're like, this should
uh,
work. Why is this not working? And so
yep,
I think that may have been the issue. Is I think I probably actually, now that I think like now that I'm talking about it a little bit more, I think I at one point had the house audio plugged into group one, which should have worked, but then when I plugged cables in to get audio into Zoom, because here's how it started. So we walked into the room at 4:30. Session starts at 6. Should have been plenty of time to get set up. And that's another thing is I'm going to probably add on another half hour, get there 2.5 hours before the event. Because then if I get everything set up, I can go do other things and stuff like that. But the very first thing was Mallory couldn't hear me on Zoom in person. So I'm troubleshooting that issue to say, why aren't people hearing people in person? Or Mallory couldn't hear me on Zoom while I was in person. I'm like, why can't people hear me? And that was my first troubleshooting. Once I got that figured out, took about a half hour or so. Then we started trying to figure out why we couldn't hear Zoom. And of course, 5 people start walking in and then want to talk at the same time. And that's another reason why I'm going to add another half hour to an hour to my setup time. Because yeah, people like to talk, which isn't a problem unless you're trying to figure something out and
unless you're
figure out
trying to
why it's not
figure something
working.
out, yeah.
Yeah.
So see, this is where you need to strategically deploy the Mallory. If Mallory is as much like me as I think she is, which is except she's probably a little bit more polite. So she will politely get people to kind of stop talking or move over that way with your
Mhm.
conversation so you're not right over here on top of me with all your crap.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Now, what I would have done in this situation is strategically deploy the Tia because I would have told her they need to shut the F up. Right. And like, but you go figure out how to tell them that.
Go have a
Uh,
conversation with them or something because I got to
Yeah,
figure this out.
and move it that way, please, because I can't hear. And when I
Yeah.
do hear, I'm just hearing them, which isn't helping.
So here was my other solution that I was going to do to solve the problem. And I'm like, okay, so it was 5:55, and I'm like, we're going in 5 minutes. Either way, we got to figure this out. People on Zoom can hear us. We just can't hear them. The worst part about it is we had a presenter on Zoom, so that was fun. Anyways, so my solution was I'm going to unplug I have another dual 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch cable. I'm going to plug one end of this 1/8 inch cable into the headphone jack on the MacBook. And then I'm going to run that into the mixer and run that audio out of the main. So that way it goes to the overhead speakers, right? Following me there? That
Yep.
makes sense?
That's the quick hot fix.
Yep. The problem is, and this is why I'm not sure if I should be blaming Zoom or what, but Zoom would not let me pick that output. It would let me pick the MacBook speakers, but it wouldn't let me pick the MacBook headphones. And I picked the MacBook speakers, and Zoom came out of the MacBook speakers, but it wouldn't let me pick the headphone jack. So it was really weird.
Could you see the headphone jack and it was just like dimmed out, or did it not show up at all?
It just didn't show up. I did not leave the meeting and come back.
I wonder if you have a bad cable.
So it's funny you bring that up, because we tried 2 different cables. We did not try my hotfix with the second cable, but we did try it with the first cable. So that could be, I'm using the first cable now, because you know how on these 1/4 inch cables at the end, it's not exposing wire, but the connectors are further away than from the cover of the wire than they normally are. And that's the case with this one right now. But when I got home, I plugged in the Windows laptop that I have for work. I cleaned off my desk before we left. And when I got home, I put it on my desk and plugged that into the mixer. And I'm running that into channel 3.4. And that cable is working just fine out of the headphone jack. So there could be some weird things going on. I will say, I was going to come back to this though. Thank you to the organization that provided me the DJI Wireless 2Go microphone set, because I clipped one of those lapel mics to carry, and then we ran audio out of the receiver into the board, and that audio actually came out and sounded pretty darn good. So that was awesome, and she was able to work hands-free. So
excellent. I forgot you had those when I was sitting here mapping out ideas for doing a talkback situation. So that is awesome, because that is something I absolutely would have included in deployment. There is clipping that mic to, because we talked about that at some point, like clipping a wireless mic to people who are always going to have to speak, so you don't have to worry about them being too close to the mic or whatever, or passing a mic back and forth, because that person always is going to have to speak, so they should just be mic'd up.
Yep. And apparently the receiver will let us change the gain of each of the microphones on there. That part's not accessible, but Mallory was reading some of the menu options to me, and it lets us change the output levels and stuff like that. So it looks pretty powerful, and I'm gonna throw that in my gear bag, so I always have some wireless mics with me for sure.
Yeah, and good thing you got those now, because they're gonna go about 245% or something.
This week, next week it'll be more or less. Who knows?
Or not at all. Yeah, nobody knows. So I guess I'm not getting any, because I'm not going to buy them right now, because they're not that important. And by the time I will want to buy them, they'll be like, I'm not paying that much for them. They're already, roughly about $300, I think.
Yeah.
They'll be $6 by the time,
right.
this is done. It's like, I don't think they're that good. I mean, at that point, I should just start looking at DPA or something. For sure. Well, cool. So, going back to the whole don't beat yourself up, like, I'm the exact same way. Like, something does not go as planned, like, constantly. And even if stuff does kind of work and, like, there's not a problem, I'm still reviewing in my mind after the fact, like, oh, what could I have done differently? Or in this situation, I should have done this, or I should have did it this way, or, things like that. And I think that's sort of a natural behavior for a lot of people. Some people, maybe not so much. Maybe that's how you get to be president. You don't ever second guess yourself. You just, full speed ahead. There's no second guessing, no reviewing, no after action plan, no nothing. Two things. One, and I actually thought I forgot this was Oregon's convention.
Leadership.
This weekend. So I thought you were like out of town, like across the country in Virginia or something.
So when I texted Damashe and said, "Hey, just a reminder, we're recording Sunday," he's like, "Oh, okay, thanks for letting me know."
Well, you actually had mentioned it before that you had it coming up this because we talked about the audio setup.
Yeah, and we were
Uh,
gonna. I'm like, "Oh, I could probably record on Saturday when I get home," and you're like, "Nah, let's push to the next day because you're not gonna want to record when you get home." Which thankfully I pushed to the next day because I did not want to record yesterday.
yeah. So what that message actually was supposed to have said is like, thanks for reminding me because I didn't remember if I did know because I wasn't sure that I knew until I
Yeah,
thought about it later. I said, yeah, we did talk about this because we talked. Well, now it comes back to me that we talked about it because I'm like, oh yeah, this is Oregon's thing. Yeah, we talked about that because we talked about the audio setup. And yep, I was like, nope, we'll just do Sunday that week because
yep.
you're not going to want to come straight home and have to sit down and
I think that's what your message said. But
record a
when
show.
you're running through the hotel, you're like, "Yeah, okay, so he forgot." So fun time.
But yeah, I would have. So standing thing. So next time, call me. Like if you can't get me, you can't get me, but call me because
Mhm.
we may be able to talk through and figure out what the problem is. Because we kind of did that last year. I think it was for the convention last year.
Yeah, and the audio came out great last year, if I remember right. Mallory said it did. So
uh, so yeah, call me. I was actually around, so you actually could have probably trouble. What's the word? Not trouble chat that.
troubleshooted doesn't sound right
Troubleshot.
either.
Troubleshot.
Yes, there you
That's
go.
it. There we go.
So
Okay. So you could have
we could have
troubleshot.
worked through it.
Yeah. But anytime, man, call me. Like if you don't get me, you just can't get me. But call me or shoot me a text. I'm like, hey, you got a sec for this. Because oftentimes it's just a matter of talking through it, even if I don't have an idea. Like, I mean, one situation we've been through like that before, you figured out what the problem was as you were explaining to me what you had done. And you were like, oh,
Mhm.
wait a minute, I know how to fix it. So there's that aspect of it. But yeah, I think there's a lot for me. There's always an after action sort of conversation going on in my head about things. And it's like, oh, what could I have done better here? How could I have made this work? And if stuff falls apart or really doesn't work the way I want it to, and it should be easy because this is an area that is a part of my core competency. Yeah, it's rough. I'm
Yeah.
pretty mean guy to myself. Like I tell people, you think I'm mean to you, like you'll see how I treat myself, man. You don't want to be a part of those after action meetings, for sure. Uh, but I have similar. I have similar things going on, so it happens. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are like that, and yeah, don't. I think it's valuable to extract from whether it's a how did I screw this up or how did I not screw it up, or if things went well and it's just like a review. I mean, again, think of it as a after action meeting with yourself. I think it's valuable to try to extract out what didn't go right and how you can improve. And I think it's
Mhm.
valuable to always do that. Uh, but I also think it is, as you said, important to kind of remind yourself in this situation, especially when things didn't go, according to plan. Is one, a plan is just a plan, and it never survives first contact with the enemy. Whether we're talking about war or we're talking about just live streaming some audio. Um, At that point, Zoom becomes the enemy. You're like, yeah, so you're not working now. All right. Yeah, we'll figure you out. And the other thing I would say is that, I'll always keep that in mind. I think that's good for everybody to remember. And the other thing is, extract what you can from it and then just kind of let it go. Like you still pulled it off. It worked.
Yep.
Um, it doesn't mean you're a complete failure and it sucks and maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But I think everybody goes through that. I think it's
Mhm.
valuable to remember that it's just a momentary thing. And again, extract what you can to try to make yourself better. But at some point, let go of the recriminations against why or how, because all you can do is try to plan for the next time.
Right. Yep.
And
And come up with
we,
backup solutions because
yeah,
Yep.
definitely come up with backup solutions, test them out, and we've talked about it, and we even talked about speakers a couple of weeks ago. You looking at some speakers? I didn't think you were going to get any before this event here anyway. But friend of the show and past guest JJ has said better when you bring your own speakers and everything, because then you don't have to worry about screwing with their crap.
Yes, sir.
Let's see what GPT told me about this switch.
This person's audio. Let's try dash 20 dB. Wow, she came in at 20 dB over what she should have came in.
Ouch. So I'm slightly trying to make a suggestion, but I'm also asking a question because I'm not 100% certain. In this case, would having sent her audio or having that audio also going to, say, a backup recording source like a Zoom Essentials with the 32-bit float, etc., would that be a better, like, let's say, so our audio is peaking or something, right? With the Zoom, would the Zoom recorder remove, because it's got that 32-bit float, would she not be clipping there and give you a good backup, cleaner backup recording to be able to use?
Yeah, I think so. So this audio, when I first brought it in to Reaper, it was super loud and she was clippy sounding. And I took her down to right now negative. What is she at now? I moved her down to negative 16 dB, and now she's tolerable. I'm actually going to go over here and do normalize to minus 16 LUFS. That's a little high, actually.
That's industry standard.
And
though.
see, she sounds perfect now. Like,
okay.
So she might have sent me a Zoom recorder, an H1E. Well, she has the H1 and the H4, but yeah. So.
Oh, this is audio somebody sent you. This is not.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about audio that you recorded this weekend.
No. This audio was something that someone sent me.
Okay.
For a podcast.
So ChatGPT, because of, again, I asked a leading question. I tried to ask it the same. I guess I could have went back through my history and found the original question. But I asked it in the same leading way I would have asked it months ago. And it still is giving me it's still giving me instructions on how to rewire it. It did not say, so hey, there's also, I mean, you could do this and here's how, but also there's a switch on the side that does that. So, yeah, maybe if I dropped in the specific model number, which I didn't do, but also didn't do that the first time either.
Or if you asked it, is there a way to fix this?
Yeah.
Or is that what you did?
No, I asked the question the same way I did the first time because I asked a leading question because I assumed I had to rewire it because when I was like, how do I fix this? Everything I came across on the internet was people talking about how to rewire the thing or that it needed to be rewired. And I was like, oh, okay, let me ask GPT how to do that and see how complicated the solution is instead of watching this guy's 26-minute long YouTube video of him pointing at a bunch of stuff. So I asked it that same way, with the hopes that it would like come back and be like, hey, just flip this switch and that makes this whole process unnecessary. But if you really want to rewire it, how you go about doing it. But yeah, I can ask the question of like, how do I change this behavior? And it may actually give me the correct answer. But it also might help if I dropped it in the actual model number because I don't know how many there's a couple of different MS11s on Sweetwater that I saw. I was like, I need to figure out the difference in these. And that's when I read somebody's comment and I was like, let me go find a screwdriver and dig this thing out of this drawer I threw it in months ago.
So there's that. Mute switch.
Now I have a mute switch that works the way I want it to work, which is awesome. And I could also stick it on the floor and just step on it. But I probably won't do that. Yeah, that works. Sometimes it helps to read the manual or do some research on something you bought that doesn't do what you want it to do, or figure out that, oh, this product does XYZ thing that I didn't know it did. Let's see if I can find this draft I was looking at, because we could save that Copilot thing for another conversation.
My answer would be very short, and I'm not using it. I'm using GPT right now.
Wait, inside of VS Code?
No.
Oh, just going to GPT and then copy paste?
Okay. Yeah, well, copy code. When it gives you code, copying it.
Okay, so this is going to go back to the conversation here, and I'm curious for you, based off the experience this weekend, and now having the DJI mics. Rode stuff is from Australia. Might not be as expensive.
Might not.
I think we're still friends with them. I'm not sure.
For now.
Yeah.
For now. Could be different in a couple hours.
Yeah. Maybe I'll grab the Rode wireless. I think I said I might do that anyway, just to give us a different comparison of the since you have the DJIs, I could try the Rodes. So we get our perspective. I think that's what Steven used somewhere too, was the Rode Go mics, which sounded really good when he did that event that I think he used them at. I'm not sure if that's what he's still using. But that's neither here nor there, honestly. The question with you having the DJI mics is it still necessary for these type of events, at least for you to have a talkback system so that you can speak directly to a person that you have mic'd up?
I don't think for these type of events it's necessary. I think there's a place for that, but I think for these, no, not really. The problem that arises with talkback systems and being able to talk with someone is people are not used to that. You and I, if we have headphones on or an earbud in and we hear a different voice that isn't ours, are like, oh, okay. Like that's not a huge issue. And most of the time we'll pay attention to it. If Carrie, for example, is doing her agenda and all of a sudden someone says, back off the mic, there's a good chance she's going to be like, huh, what? I don't understand. Or something of that nature. Maybe not quite that detailed, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
it's going to throw her off what she's doing because she's not going to be able to just continue as she was and just follow the instruction.
But there is room. The thing that I think would be more appropriate would be at national convention, for example. If I need a streamer to a specific Zoom room, and I'm in one room, and the person who's streaming is more than likely off-site, possibly in a different state, it would be faster to key up and say, hey, we need a streamer in this room. Right now, the solution is to send a message to a group text message, which works. It works. But if I'm in the middle of a room setting up audio, connecting things, making sure everything's ready to go, honestly, I don't want to go mess with my messages to find the keyboard, to two-finger double tap, to dictate a message, to hit send. I'd rather just, hit a button on a microphone and say, hey, we need a streamer in Zoom Room A, and have that message go out to a group of people. That's why I've been really toying with the idea of utilizing Zello for comms, because it's kind of like we could have a group of hundreds of people if we needed it. We don't need hundreds in a Zello room, but we could have a group where everyone who has now the problem with Zello or walkie-talkie on your Apple Watch, which is an interesting feature.
Well,
that
it
please
doesn't work.
Do not rely on that.
Yeah, it is not reliable, and everybody's not going to have an Apple Watch.
But the problem is if someone's in another conference room and they're in the middle of an event and they need to hear the messages and they don't have an earbud in, then everyone's going to hear that message. That's the downfall to walkie-talkie PTT comms.
Yeah,
but it's their responsibility, I feel, to
get a pair of Shokz.
Yeah. Oh man, I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, the Shokz or even Ray-Bans, like Shokz or Ray-Bans, have those on and hit the button and just talk and then go on with your day. Like,
yeah. Oh, we'll have to play around with it.
Pause. Have you played around with them?
So no, because I didn't see Andy's email, and then when I saw Andy's email, it was like, this closes at such and such a time. I'm like, man, it's 7:30. So I missed that. I was like, oh crap, I got to figure out how to catch up on that.
Though?
Yeah, because you said it closed.
Well, that survey closed.
Yeah, that survey closed. Yeah, so I kind of forgot about it after that.
Yeah,
because I was like, oh crap, I didn't do the survey.
Try
it. Go figure out what I need to do.
I
will go try it. I will try it tonight, actually, because actually I have a need for them. I'm gonna have to go label some boxes before I go to bed. So
yeah,
it's
fucking amazing, man. Like, It's amazing.
Break goes out.
It's
And,
Be My Eyes on your glasses. So you get the Be My Eyes
uh,
detail.
well, no,
And
I haven't used it Be My AI. I've actually been using Iris AI for a lot of stuff.
so yeah, we can figure out some sort of solution for comms, and we'll talk more about it too. And frankly, it may be for this next convention that we are using text messages simply because, again, we go back to the previous part of this conversation. It's what people are used to, or the people that I'll be working with are used to.
Yeah, it works. And you got to think about cost at a certain point of deploying a system, right? Because
Mhm.
ultimately what's needed in this case, and so I'll tell you what I was thinking about just in a smaller convention aspect. And I was thinking about like the Oregon convention or something. I was like, oh, he's got a mic up Carrie. Uh, maybe Carrie can either put an earbud in her ear
Mm.
or some shocks on. And I was like, huh, they could have like a FaceTime audio call open or a WhatsApp call open with the people that Mike needs to speak to, kind of,
Huh.
low key, give them a warning. Everybody in the call is muted except for Mike, but Mike's mute is controlled by hardware. So when he needs to say something, he can activate himself in that specific channel only and say, "Hey, Carrie, you're eating my microphone," and that's not good. And
Huh.
that's her indication to back up a bit. And she carries on. Now, what I also wrote down as I was thinking about this stuff, and initially it was like, oh, Mike could kind of halfway depress his mute button right here and say, Carrie, you're too close to the mic. Then she could back up. But also what I wrote down was like, she would need earbuds or some sort of, thing. I was thinking like shocks maybe because it would
Mm.
leave her ears open or earbud in. I was like, I'm not sure what visually how that would look. And that could maybe potentially send the wrong message if it's a too much visible or of a headset or earpiece, but it was a kind of low key, low cost, low tech solution to a problem.
Yeah, and I can actually see a use in that. For example, so she doesn't have to keep asking, "Is so and so from this place on Zoom yet?" We could just hit a button, say, "Greg's here" or whatever, and then she can transition however she wants to transition that. That that is a problem to solve, and I'm going to keep that in the forefront of my mind, almost at the background of my mind. But I'm going to be conscious of that because I think that could be helpful for a lot of scenarios. Um, and it is a different tech stack than communicating with background people. And see, my mind went to communicating with other people, helping make audio and video go well at convention. For example, we have one main guy who works at audio with ACB, and the bane of my existence are assisted listening devices because they are, interestingly enough, completely inaccessible. So you have to look on the screen for the receiver and make sure it matches the transmitter channel. And so a lot of times I would text Ryan and I'd be like, "Hey Ryan, ALD is down," or "Hey Ryan, need help with this ALD." And if we had a quick and he would get the message and see it and like do the thing you and I do sometimes, think, "Oh, I'll be right there," and then go finish doing what he was doing, but forget to
And
actually
forget
send
about
that
the
message.
yeah.
And then I'm sitting here dealing with understandably frustrated individuals because they can't hear what's going on in the room and they're trying to be quiet but they can't be quiet and we're in the middle of a session. And so having a quick way to say, "Hey Ryan, need you here, ALD is not working," and then he can just hit a button. Of course you may get the same issue that you had where thinking I'll be right there and not hitting the button to do it, but I think that would lower that friction. Whereas speaking to the presenters is a totally different tech stack, I think.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking about initially when I was, jotting stuff down and I was planning to send you this switch. I was like, oh, that could be a solution because Mike could
Mm,
always wire his phone into the board and
yep.
only send audio to his phone when he needs to say to whomever, do X, Y, Z or yada yada yada. Yeah, I was thinking about it more for presenters and trying to figure out a way that would make that a little easier. I think with the wider production team for something like a national convention,
Mm,
one is probably a off-air conversation because there's probably stuff that you can't, shouldn't say publicly and
mm,
maybe shouldn't even tell me, but I'm not taking it anywhere to kind of maybe figure out a solution there. And that to
mm.
me is where we would start, I think, also looking at maybe some of the more professional level uh comm systems because
Yeah.
you got people spread out all over the place.
Yep.
And you
Sometimes
need
all over the
something
country.
and you need something that can reach everybody in whatever way they're comfortable and able to use it. So some may have a earpiece that they can just tap and respond to you or put out a call or whatever, and some may just be at their computer with their earbuds on, and they got some software running on
Mhm.
the computer where they're able to hear you, whatever that may be. So that's
You gotta be able to target that audio too in a lot of cases,
right.
'cause
and
not
and that's
everyone
the
needs to hear everything.
Right. And that's also a downside I wrote here to this particular solution for presenters is like, with this solution, everybody that's a part of that call would hear you tell, I'm sorry, Carrie, I'm not really trying to pick on you. You're just the only person's name who I know that will be there.
Right.
But you telling Carrie to do X, Y, Z, that also means, everybody else is going to hear that. Uh, but again, a little practice with that can help keep people from reacting, including the person that you're actually talking to, from
Yes.
reacting, um, in a way to that. But that is a downside to that system. But for a smaller group, it's manageable. For a larger group, you do need to be able to specifically target, hey, I need to talk to this person.
Mhm.
And then, you're able to target. And that's where the more professional level talkback systems, I think, come in to play. And they talk about some of that stuff on office hours. Some of it is expensive. Some of it, I think, is just a matter of just deploying software and
Mhm.
hoping it's accessible, and then you're able to use it.
So, yeah, that is a couple of things that we want to chat about. Did you have other things, or do we want to wrap it up? Because today's going to be a shorter episode, so I can get this turned around and out to people by Monday evening. By the way, if you didn't get the memo, our technically working shows now come out on the evenings of Monday. They still come out on Mondays, but it's typically 4 to 7 p.m. Pacific time is when they're coming out. So if you're checking your podcast app of choice for technically working and it's not out first thing in the morning, uh, check back later or check on Tuesday morning because it'll be out on Monday, just maybe later in the day.
Or follow the bot if you're on
Ooh,
Mastodon, TW at technically.social, and you'll get a post when the episode goes live.
I would forget we have a bot now because it's so
Yeah, man,
new.
we got a bot. It's new and it's still working.
Yes, yes,
By the way, I
solid.
really actually didn't do anything to it to make it post the link. I was waiting for it to post the next episode before I tried to go fix it, and it
Mm.
just posted the link. So, whatever,
Oh,
man.
mm,
We're gonna
mm.
leave that alone. We're gonna leave it alone. I
Don't
don't know.
touch it.
Maybe me re-editing the post and then reposting with the link attached did something, and I was like, oh,
Or, or maybe it's listening to the show.
well, that's possible too. Although that means that bot is already out of control, and I that's been giving it that much ability.
Bot, if you're listening to the show, give our listeners a hint.
There's a couple of smaller things I wanted to mention that I did jot down. I've talked about moving to the Pixel
Mm,
9, at least to give it a full try. One, partially because I really like this phone.
yeah.
So I'm gonna try. I finally got signed into Apple Music, which is one of the things that was kind of holding me up. I don't think if I mentioned that, but I was trying to sign into Apple Music. It kept telling me, we need your 6-digit code. I'm like, I didn't get a code anywhere.
Hmm.
Uh, and just a side note, I had to go back to using Apple system. I think at some point I mentioned I had switched over to using YubiKeys for my two-factor on my Apple
Yeah.
account, partially because I had to test it out to see, if it really worked, which it did. It was fine. I do make you attach two keys just so you have a backup or something.
Mhm.
However, at the time when I was testing stuff on the Pixel 8, nope, yep. I don't know, last year. You couldn't sign into Apple Music if you on Android if you were using YubiKey as your second factor. It just
Oh,
did not present you with the option. It wanted a code, and they no longer show codes to you in settings, even though uh, I think the help text there tells you that, as well as a couple of articles on Apple's website still say that you can go into settings to get your code if you don't receive it on your device as a pop up. That is no longer true.
that's frustrating. But at least and you can't just use a YubiKey in Android to enter that code.
No, because the,
Okay.
the code they're looking for is what you would normally get, like the
Yeah.
pop up on your phone is like, hey, you're
Yep.
trying to sign into, your MacBook in Oregon. It's just you. And
Right.
it gives you a code or it sends it to you as a text message.
Yep.
Uh, so yeah, the YubiKey option just is not presented. I actually called Apple. I actually called Apple about that.
Wow.
And went around and around and finally the lady's like, yeah, so the Android app actually hasn't been updated to support that. I was like, well, that's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Apple.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate it. So anyway, but and I thought I was just stuck in a loop there last week, a couple of weeks ago when I was trying to sign into Apple. Because listen, Apple Music is critical for me to have access to. And if I can't use Apple Music on it, I can deal with switching podcast apps. I'm not switching music services, primarily because I'm not going to pay for another one.
Yeah.
Because there are ways to export your, playlists
Mhm.
and all of that stuff. So that's fine, but I'm just not going to pay for another service. I
Yep. Because
will.
you'd have to pay for a separate service to get.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not happening. And they have not tricked me into paying for YouTube Premium yet. That would include YouTube Music, which I still wouldn't use. So got signed into Apple Music. I'm going to try the Switch and see how it goes. Currently, my Pixel has the phone number on a very cheap, unlimited talk and text plan, and I think there may be a gig of data or something included in that. But anyway, it's $10 a month.
Mm.
For the Bedrock Innovations number is what's currently activated on that phone. So there is some phone service on there for testing purposes. I'm thinking about making the switch and bringing my, which is currently what I have on my iPhone right now, is my personal line, of course, and then the Spirals number, because that's the phone that I'm always carrying with me. And those calls are, I don't say more important, but more frequent than
Yeah.
calls to Bedrock Innovations. I'm in a bit of a conundrum. Air message doesn't seem to be working at the moment. I'm not really sure if I should depend on something like that anyway. A part of me says just move the Spirals number over to the Pixel and just make that a work phone, and then have the iPhone as a personal phone, which means I don't know, forward my calls to that phone probably, because I'm not going to carry two phones. They're too big for the most part. I'll have one in my backpack so I could carry the iPhone that way. Not sure what I'm going to do about that just yet, but I probably will make the switch sometime in the coming weeks. There's a new app that I just heard about or discovered when researching, BlueBubbles, that is also supposed to allow you to do iMessage on Android. A little more complicated to set up. You got to do a Google Firebase thing. So it's a little more complicated than AirMessage. But AirMessage isn't working. But I'm going to try to Pixel out. Most of what I need / use on my phone is available on Android. So that's awesome. I have been actually using the phone. I used it to shoot some video the other day, as a matter of fact, of me using the 6-dot labeler, which I need to send off to my niece to have her edit up into something usable. But probably going to at least try that out. I'm not sure if I'll make it to the end of May. We'll see when I actually move over and see if I make it to Memorial Day. That's the first goal.
Go. Yeah.
Another thing I'm thinking about doing is I'm going to minimize the number of VMs that I have. I don't have that many, but I probably have more than I should have. And here's my thought process though. Because like you, and I think, I'm not sure if I put this idea in your head or we just chatted about it and had came to the same decision. But for example, I have an AT Guys machine and I run that machine up when I'm doing AT Guys stuff that requires me to be in Windows. It occurred to me, I only have one Mac.
Yeah.
And I do all the stuff that I do on the Mac. Like it doesn't matter what company it's for or whatever. I do all that stuff on the Mac. The only thing I probably should do at some point is set up another, because I did have this on an older Mac some years ago, is set up another account that I use just for demos. So
Yeah.
I don't have to go screw up my personal stuff when I'm trying to show somebody how to do a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, that's just a different user account though. I'm still on the same Mac. I was like, well, why don't I just use one Windows VM, spec it out pretty decent in the settings. So give it, a decent amount of RAM and hard drive space. And that's my Windows machine that is probably kind of always running in the background, except when I close it intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Windows stuff happens.
Right.
Doesn't matter which company it's for. It'd be like me having a Windows laptop. I'm not going to switch accounts to go through all that. I will have a Tinker Windows
Yes.
machine for me to tinker with stuff, because I have to go tinker with stuff and I don't want to break my environment.
Yes. I
But
called
I
mine my dev machine, but yeah, Tinker,
but I
Yep.
think that's what I'm going to do is probably, well, I have that one already set up. I'm probably, what I'm going to do is just do one more installation, kill off the couple extras that I have sitting there, inspect this one out with maybe like 12 gigs of RAM and a decent amount of hard drive space.
Give it like 16 or 24, because you have 36. So
Yeah, I'll probably give it 16.
yeah. Yeah. There you go.
That'll leave
There
me
you go.
20 for the Mac. Yeah, that works. Give it 16 gigs of RAM. And just have that as a machine. And that way I can more easily set up shortcuts, like with open in, for
Yeah.
example, to say, okay, if I click this sort of link or I'm opening this kind of file, open it over in Windows,
Mhm. And this
things like that, because yeah, open it in Windows, which is just going to be Windows, right? So like from clicking on blanked
if
on
he's
the name of
opening a
that.
Microsoft Word document, it opens a Microsoft Word.
Yeah, on Windows, or
Yep.
which is good. I was trying to think of Zendesk. Like if I click on a Zendesk link, open that in Windows every time. Like don't open it in Chrome over there. So I think that's gonna help minimize the amount, and it lets me build out a beefier machine. It was like I don't have to shut down this machine and open up this machine unless I'm about to
Right.
go screw around with something. That dev machine will have like my weird DRM removal things that may or may not actually exist, allegedly.
Alleged. But I like that idea. I use NVDA, my development machine, and I actually deleted it the other day. So right now I just have my AT guys machine, which I haven't opened in quite a while. But I like that idea of just having one or two virtual machines, because honestly, they take up a lot of disk space too. So,
Yeah.
so there is that. But in my dev machine, I used NVDA and I had JAWS in my Windows machine. And I'm like, you should consolidate those and use one screen reader, because a lot of times I'm like, why is this not working? Although I will say Windows Terminal with NVDA can be easier in some instances.
So I have JAWS installed in a Windows VM, but also I have
You just don't remember
NVDA.
which one.
I actually know which one it is. It's just the one where I used the license key that was purchased for my use of Windows.
Yeah.
But I still find myself using NVDA just because that's what I'm using everywhere else. And I'm probably wrong, but I feel like there's a learning curve to JAWS that I'm going to have to get around, because it's been so long since I've actually used JAWS. Like even when I was still on Windows full time, my last couple of 3 years with Windows was NVDA. Mostly because at the time I was using different laptops, because I was doing a lot of laptop borrowing 13 years ago. So I might borrow my sister's laptop for this, and then, now I'm in Atlanta, so I'm using this person's computer. So I just
Yeah.
had NVDA on a flash drive. I plug it in, and there's my portable NVDA with my Firefox installation and my Skype portable installation, all of that stuff.
Yep.
It's probably not that difficult to get back into JAWS. I must say, once again, that the tweaks to the virtual machine, that's the other reason it started me thinking about this too, because I kept opening up machines like, why ain't this work? Oh, because I didn't make those changes that I made to that. But, okay. Oh, crap, I got to install Sharp keys over here. But man, Sharp keys, the tweak to the settings about passing through keys is amazing. I can bring up reliably, consistently the the element picker or what will be like the links list or whatever in JAWS on the web and go through
Ah,
things. Yeah, I forgot that was even a keystroke I hadn't been able to use in so long. Yeah, insert F7. It can be your friend. I think it's insert F7 or it's F6. I forget. Anyway,
probably
my
F7
fingers
because
know how to press it.
JAWS's links list is F7.
Yeah, so it's F7.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, I'm glad that helps.
But yeah, man, I think that's it. I am back to spreadsheets very heavily. I'm probably going to start tinkering with Excel. Yeah.
And Google Sheets.
Google Sheets, I really got to look at. There's some stuff I want to wire. That's the other thing that I'm really trying to figure out. Is it worth me paying for workspace for spirals or not? I really haven't made a decision on that. Should I just set up so my options here are, because I do want to have some separation so stuff doesn't get mixed in. There will be a Spirals Google account of some sort, but on the most base simple level, just go create a Google account with that, with a Spirals email address. And hey, I got docs and sheets. There's the Workspace Essentials that I think is still available for free. That gives you some of the basics. I think that throws in calendar and contacts. You just don't get mail and something else with that. Or just pay for a full-on Google Workspace license, on a tier and use it that way. I don't know why this is such a difficult decision to make other than I have been kind of sort of, I don't know, resistant to spending money on gotta spend, I guess. I don't know, man. But it's like, what are the pros and cons of this? Although I feel like I should make a decision and stick with it, which is probably going to end up just doing a workspace license because this is a business that should be solid if I'm going to mess around with differing ways of running services. I think the consulting business is the one for that because that's his role. This just needs to work.
Yep. Just needs to be consistent and work for you.
And eventually there are going to be other people who have accounts up under this, which is why I'm really looking at Workspace, even over something like Fastmail, and just trying to make it simple and straightforward. Because I hire somebody at some point that needs actual access to an email address.
Moving yourself is easier than moving multiple people.
Yeah. And dealing with weird stuff is easier for me. Like, if I got to set up a profile just so I don't have to configure all the settings manually on the Mac or whatever for, email and calendars, I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly okay with that. Doing it for somebody else is it's a pain in the neck, man. I've done it for a company and it was not fun. It was their choice. I mean, but still, it was not fun because people lose the profile or they delete the profile. It's like, oh, my email doesn't work. I don't see it on here. It's like, okay, let's go do this. Let's do this. Hey, go here, and here in settings. Do you see a profile that says company name services? No, I deleted it because I didn't know what that was for. That was how your email was configured on your device in your contacts. Yeah.
So next week, hint, I will follow up and talk about my use of AI in automating with Google App Scripts. I should have some more information about that next week because I'm 97.5% sure I'm almost where I want to be. So definitely exciting times. And it'll be follow up on our previous conversation. It's funny, I texted one of our volunteers today because she's like, hey, this came up. Where do you want to move them to? And I'm like, well, give me a couple minutes. Let me go look and I'll get this figured out because I don't have these things memorized. Then I texted her back sooner than the time frame that I gave myself. And then she thanked me and I'm like, you're welcome. By the way, we're going to get this automated some way so we don't have to keep doing this and we can make sure that everything gets to where it needs to be. And her comment back was, that'll be so nice. Have a good day or something like that. And I'm like, yep, my automation is going to impact more than just myself. And it's going to make a lot of people's lives so much easier. So I will follow up next week with some more details on where we are with that and how we're using AI to help with generating that content. Well, that coding.
Cool. Yeah. And I should have some preliminaries on some automations that I'm working on because I think I have just decided to just go ahead and do Workspace. So we're going to do that. I need I need Sheets because it'll allow me to do some things
Yes,
on the web for
Sheets is
sure.
cool. I like Sheets.
And Mike has convinced me. Well, he hasn't convinced me. Just telling me that Sheets is uh, what was the word you used? Was it amazing? I think it was amazing on
Yeah,
Windows.
amazing.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, nobody's ever said that about Sheets. But
It
knowing
has its
where
quirks,
Mike
but every software does.
yeah, but knowing where we both are trying to use it on the Mac for you to say it's amazing is like, okay, well that makes a difference. I gotta
Oh,
get
it's
these
still crap
sheets.
on the Mac. Just
Oh
full
yeah, yeah,
transparency.
yeah. I
Yeah.
know that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
okay.
But for the experience on Windows to be
Yes.
amazing, not just it's better. Like Zendesk is not amazing on Windows. It's just
Right.
better and more useful, usable than it is on the Mac.
Yeah.
Like there's a different sort of it's like, oh well, just use Zendesk in Windows. Okay, well, no, it is better and easier, but it's not amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's Google connected products, which means it works with other tools. And it can be
Gemini, anyone? Maybe not.
if you're a student, you can get Gemini Pro whatever for free. Just saying.
Oh, well, all the students out there who are interested in AI, or if you still have access to your EDU email, which some places let you keep forever, have at it. I've never stuck around at anybody's school long enough to even use the email.
You may have emails that are active that you don't even know about.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Like, I probably actually have some that may be active, but I never stick around long enough to ever actually use their email. Or they weren't doing their own email. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, we want to thank everybody for listening. This has been Technically Working episode
107.
Okay, I thought I was right when I was about to say 107. All right. This has been Technically Working episode 107. We appreciate you listening. Thanks to our tip jar supporters, as always. We appreciate it. I won't even mention the eggs this week because it was tax week. So, man, thanks to everybody who listens, of course. We appreciate it. If you get value, entertainment, something out of this show, please do us a favor and share with someone else. Share on any social media platform you choose to. The best link to give people is technicallyworking.show. That'll get them to our page. That's also where you can go to become a tip jar supporter yourself if you have started to raise chickens and don't have to worry about the cost of eggs. You can follow us on social media. He is Payon, Payown, at dragonscave.space. That's dragonscave.space. I am Damashe, Damashe, at technically.social. And the show bot is TW at technically.social. You can also use the hashtag technically working, which I am following and Michael is following, and also our bot is following. So, maybe the bot will repost you.
Shout out to the bot.
Yeah.